Morana, and welcome everybody to today's webinar, The Power of a Remuneration Strategy, which is brought to you by Best Places to Work in partnership with HealthNow. I'm Julie Gill, CEO of Best Places to Work. I'll be your host today, and we're thrilled to have you join us. So, you know what they say, money can't buy you happiness, but a well-crafted remuneration packages sure can get you there closely. And today we'll explore how a comprehensive strategy keeps your team happy and engaged. We know a well-designed package is an essential component in the competition for top talent nowadays. And while offering attractive salaries is important, a comprehensive strategy will provide a really good blueprint for attracting, retaining, and motivating your workforce, also while safeguarding your employer brand. And today, joining me are three very esteemed leaders. We have Stephen Zinsley, who is the CEO of HealthNow. Morning, Stephen. And we have KP, who is the CEO of Humankind. Morning, KP. And Karen Brown, who is the head of operations at Smartly. So what a great lineup. They're going to share today their insights and best practices on creating effective compensation strategies. So let's get started with a brief introduction to the panelists. Stephen, we'll start with you first. Could you maybe share a maybe share a bit about yourself, really around your background regarding employee benefits and well-being. Do you have another little go?
Thanks, Julie. First and foremost, I just want to say that intro is absolute fire. I've not heard that line of money can't buy you happiness, but a well-packaged remuneration strategy can. And I actually tend to agree. So, I'm Steve, started HealthNow 3.5 years ago now. We're doing some really exciting stuff, right, in the delivery of benefit space and the packaging of remuneration. We're actually going through the process of branding at the moment. So this is the last event I'll be doing our branding. So I'm super excited to be joining everyone. Background on me, I started my career as a clinician in the healthcare space, built a multidisciplinary healthcare business, which we scaled to 15 clinics, 120 staff across 6 disciplines. We saw 105,000 patients a year. I was really passionate about healthcare affordability and working out how we could make healthcare more affordable to more people, which then led us down the line of employer wellbeing programs and how employers were delivering those wellbeing programs, historically using reimbursement as one of the main functions, which we think is really lame. No one likes reimbursements, not the employee, not the person responsible for putting it into payroll. And we felt that we could use technology to improve it with controllable payment cards, and we've done that. We've launched it across a number of companies, more than 100 this year so far. And we're now looking at expanding our offering to not only cover health and well-being, but to look after all extraordinary payments that people make to that organizations make to their employees. So super excited to join KP and Karen here today. Massive props to Julie for pulling this together. It's going to be a great chat.
Brilliant. Thanks, Stephen. Well, I'm very excited. You gave us a little tease there to the new brand and the new name of the company. So, yeah, we look forward to that. And thanks for a great intro. I'll pass the baton over to you, KP. I know you've obviously got a wealth of experience in organisational culture and employee experience. So, yeah, it'd be great to just give a little bit of background on yourself.
Kia ora koutou. Two great introductions to follow. I'm KP, I'm the Chief Exec at Humankind, and we are Aotearoa's largest people and culture and organizational design agency. So we're super lucky. We've now worked with over 1,000 organizations to design and lead their people and culture strategies, including their compensation strategies. And so we'll definitely get into the chat today, but we really look at the full employee value proposition beyond what you'd think of as traditional compensation, and have a really strong belief that the employee value proposition that we set out to our employees is the promise, and then the actual employee experience that we deliver is the reality. And so the goal there is to be really clear on what the promise is, and then to make sure that we're delivering on that. So excited to get into the chat with you, Karen, Steve, and Julie today.
Brilliant, thanks, KP, and great. And Karen, over to you, your turn. I know you've got a great background, but I know also a real focus on that kind of employee needs, benefits, and organisational objectives. So yeah, Karen, great to give a little bit of background on yourself.
Thank you, Julie. So I'm the head of operations at Smartly. For those of you who may not know what Smartly does, we provide payroll and people management software. My journey with Smartly began quite a few years ago, back when it was Smart Payroll, where I began in a 6-month contract, not even thinking my future career might sit with Smartly. But 15 years later, I am still there, and I've been very fortunate to have been provided excellent career growth opportunities within Smartly. And I'm now in a role leading the Smartly operational teams. So I oversee the key operational areas in Smartly, which include customer support, partner success, technical support, learning and development, onboarding, and operations.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Busy lady, Karen, with that job title, no doubt. And no, thanks very much. And yeah, really happy to kick this off. So let's dive into discussion. So we've got some key questions for you, the panel, and definitely encourage you all to kind of jump in and chip in as we go along. I think the first question really to the panel, probably more Steve and Karen on this, is the importance of a comprehensive remuneration package. And maybe if Steve, you could kick off first, just explaining why relying solely on attractive salaries, it's just insufficient now for attracting and retaining talent. So it'd be good to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, totally. We're having this conversation offline right before we jumped on this morning around I've recently found a really strong interest in behavioral economics and actually how people view and perceive value and how they receive remuneration or a total part of a total REM package. And I've ended up going down a really interesting line of philosophical thought around human behavior and how we're not as smart as we like to think we are when it comes to receiving things. Like there's this example that I was reading about in a bit of research yesterday around, that's actually on adults just for reference, but would an adult rather open 5 presents or 1 present on Christmas or on their birthday? And you think like the first thing is, well, what's actually in the presents? Like, is the one that's 1 worth more than the one that's the 5? And the answer is that actually when you present people with 5 presents on a table, they pick 5 over 1 100% of the time. And it's really interesting because, when you start to carry that thesis through to remuneration, I think historically where companies have gone for just a total REM package of salary, they've not been playing into the behavioral sciences of how people receive value and getting the most out of that distribution of value that they're making. And so if you think around how you can build comprehensive employee packages that have lots of different presents, if we use the same analogy, I just think it's really important to kind of bolster those packages up and include health and well-being, include public transport, include a range of different things. First and foremost, because the gratification moments will be increased by the employee. Instead of just having that one pay increase, they're going to have lots of gratification moments across the course of utilizing their different benefits within their package. And we'll get to how we can actually do this later. Yeah. But then secondly, the perception that they have of their employer will be improved. And so I just think there's some really exciting stuff for organizations to think about from a psychological perspective, not purely just a P&L perspective of like, what are we willing to give to our people with respect to economic amount? And then secondly, how do we want to distribute that and package that to improve the perception of that recipient's experience of remuneration or packaged remuneration?
Yeah.
What's it, Karen?
Yeah, I think I agree with everything you're saying. I think by doing that, what we're going to do is increase the job satisfaction no end, which will mean loyalty and overall employee well-being. And I think these are the things that as a leader in the business we need to be concentrating on and putting a real focus on.
Yeah, no, brilliant, Karen. I think it's a really good point about the improving job satisfaction and the employee well-being. And I think KP, it'd be interesting for you, just because there's the strategies of attracting and retaining talent, and what those key elements that you believe maybe are essential in a remuneration strategy, but also to motivate employees and ensure they stay engaged. To Karen's point, in terms of staying in the company and job satisfaction, be interesting what you think those key elements are.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think first and foremost, it's really worthwhile to ask your employees what they value most. And that will, of course, there are trends, but that will vary from workforce to workforce, depending on the type of workforce that you have that supports your overall business strategy or your overall customer proposition. So ask your employees. Generally, at Humankind, I mentioned earlier, we look at the full employee value proposition. Of course, traditional compensation, salary makes up a huge part of it. Completely agree with what Karen and Stephen said. Having some flexibility around benefits is absolutely essential. When we look at the full employee value proposition at Humankind, we look at 4 key areas. It's purpose experiences, relationship experiences, enabling experiences, and performance experiences. And so purpose, firstly, we've all heard a lot about that. We know that, a number of the generations in the workforce really value purpose more than, kind of over profit at the moment. But truly, again, back to that behavioral economics, when it comes to what motivates human beings, once that baseline pay is covered, purpose drives that next highest order of performance. And so, when you have, and we all know it, we all feel it, when you have people who are doing something that they truly care about, that makes a huge difference. And that can be part of the employee value proposition, is getting to really, employees getting to work on something that they really care about. The key there is actually connecting people's work back to that, right? It's not just having the purpose, but how it's designed into the role, the opportunities to celebrate, to reflect on those things, whether that be in performance reviews, daily huddles, on Slack and whatnot. Other elements of delivering on a well-rounded employee value proposition under purpose can also even be like the reputation of your company, right? Getting to work for a top-tier firm or a great brand or a fast-growing brand can be really valuable to employees in terms of their future career prospects. Relationship experiences clearly articulate, what do you do in the form of leadership? What's the leadership style? Do you invest in leadership? That's the relationship that matters most to employees, their relationship with their leader. What do you do around kind of team connection? Is it an environment around camaraderie? What external relationships do people have access to, right? That can be relationships in the market, customer relationships. Those are really valuable. Enabling experiences, obviously flexibility, ability to work from home. If you have a great physical office space, if you have a great tech stack, all of those things. And then, of course, performance experiences includes compensation, benefits, and additional growth opportunities. So the key thing is to look really holistically. You don't need to do it all, but clearly articulate what your employee value proposition is.
Yeah, brilliant, KP. So I've got a little summary there, which is it's all about prep then. So purpose, relationship, enabling, and performance. So we'll have that as our new piece on a social after this. But I think what's interesting that is that 3 of those have nothing to do with money or finance. Do you know what I mean? So that's about you, like you say, the company's purpose connecting to obviously leadership team, etc. So I think Steve and Karen, that's interesting because I think, as you say, the performance piece around obviously compensation and benefits. So do you agree with KP that it kind of needs all four elements for that kind of compensation strategy?
Do you want to go first, Karen, and I'll follow?
Yeah, I think I really think it's a combination. I think non-monetary versus monetary perks or benefits are just as important to people. I've seen a real change in recent years from what people's expectations are or what they're asking for. And I think, once upon a time it was all about put that dollar on the table and here I am, but now it's much more so, what's in it for me? How am I going to be treated? Do you care about me? I think is a real big one now. I want opportunities, I want to grow, I want to develop, I want to learn. So I think, a lot of these giving people opportunities is something that we can't look past.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Thanks, Karen. Steve, any words of wisdom?
Words of wisdom. I don't know if I've got enough grey hairs yet, Julie, to teach you this.
You will by the end of this webinar.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I think what KP said around that base pay piece is a really important concept, right? And there's a lot of businesses out there which support other entities, and I'm sure Humankind's probably one of them, that can tell you around where your rem rate is from a base pay package perspective to make sure that you're at market. Because that is a fundamental truth, right? Like you need to be at least market rate or somewhere near market rate before, because that's the foot in the door money.
Yeah.
Then it's the other things beyond that, that the ask your people concept is another one, but it's the other things beyond that where it starts to get interesting for employees, and having that cafeteria list of auxiliary opportunities or benefits or rewards that kind of drives the second layer of the decision making, and all of the other stuff that KP mentioned around purpose, opportunities to grow. That ask your people one's really, really wild, right? Because we have lots of these conversations and we say something similar. What do you want to put on what categories do you want to make available to your people on their HealthNow card or new brand name card here? And we had ASB being one of our customers across, their thousands of people across the Motu or New Zealand. And they did that survey. They asked, what do you want to be able to use this auxiliary benefit money on? And across their thousands of different people, they had north of 200 responses of different things. And you start to think like, well, how traditionally before, and not directly a plug, but somewhat is, but before us, like how were you supposed to be able to deliver that experience across thousands of people that are distributed, diverse, and all have different needs? It's near on impossible. And we've seen companies, right? And to their credit, they've gone out and tried to build these, vendor lists as long as my arm of all the different people that their people can go and access. But I just think it's again about the experience and simplifying and making it easy.
Yeah.
The other like just the pearl of research that I was reading yesterday was around this reward concept that KP just quickly mentioned. People innately want smaller rewards more often. Having a big reward after a really long period of time is not motivating for people. It's the same as like when you're climbing a mountain, right? You don't sit there. Most people can't sit there and think about just getting to the top. They need to think about going to base camp 1, then camp 1, camp 2, camp 3, and having a reward at every single moment. And in the climbing the mountain, it's that hot cooked dinner. In an organization, we need to think about our reward and recognition and our strategies that we're using to try and empower and drive people to do the behaviors that we want and not do the behaviors we don't want, and doing them smaller prizes or rewards or recognition moments more often are going to have a better psychological impact on the recipient.
Yeah, no, I think that's brilliant. Actually, I think Steve, I think definitely really like that idea. Definitely keen to have that. That'd be really interesting to talk with ASB, I think, afterwards. You know what I mean? In terms of what was that list as well. So maybe that's another webinar down the road. But brilliant. Yeah, no, really good feedback. So I think there's a couple of things you all kind of touched on there. So we talked about employees' expectations and that big list, but how do you navigate those employee expectations? I mean, Karen, you sort of touched on that, and you've obviously been there for 15 years. You mentioned it smartly, so obviously it must be a very good place to work. But like, how do you how do you recommend companies stay attuned and to those evolving needs of the employees and regarding compensation and benefits?
Okay, I think there's a few different things that you can do. I think things like feedback sessions or surveys. Surveys can help you sort of understand what's important to your people, what they're looking for. Industry benchmarking is obviously still a really important one. What are your competitors offering? What's out there today?
Yeah.
But it's I think really important is mainly the communication. It has to be often, and it has to be for everybody. We have to understand what everybody's looking for, what's important. But I think there are a few of the things that we would do regularly to make sure that we understand what people are looking for and what's important to them. And I think people are happy to talk about it. People want to be listened to, and they want they want to know what's in it for me, not just what's in it for you.
Yeah, I really like that, Karen. I think that comes back to what KP said, isn't it? Like, ask your employee. It's like the obvious thing to do, but I suppose, and then also, like you say, it's not all about the money, and it's about that whole package. I also think I think Steve and KP, you've covered quite a bit about the employee expectations, but like, I think just coming to the employer side of things, how do you safeguard your employer brand? So, with the package, so how do you improve your company's reputation or contribute to a strong employer brand, like, without kind of going out and selling yourself, but how do you kind of position yourself on that? Be interested on what your thoughts on that on KP and Steve.
Can I start on the money side and then you go on to this week? So I think when I think about employer brand and packaging benefits, or maybe first and foremost, I just want to touch on one thing. So, we're talking about money and giving people more money. And the first thing that comes to mind for everyone probably is, well, sweet Steve, like, we're running up against a headwind right now. Where do we actually get the money? The fact of the matter is that pay rates will increase over time, right? And so, as I was saying earlier, that if you think about how you're packaging those increases, that's where you're going to be able to get the money to do these auxiliary benefits. So just to put a use case around that, you're currently paying someone $65,000. You're going to move them to $69,000 or $71,000. The reason I've gone from 69 to 71 is because you don't want to go back in the next scenario back to 69. But like, let's say you were going to put them up to 71,000 for the sake of discussion. If instead of putting them up to 71, you put them up to 70, $1,000 difference, and then you package that extra $1,000 to the side and you deliver that as benefits, auxiliary benefits, the employee isn't practically going to have too much of a moment of being upset about the fact that they're $1,000 difference. First, because they never knew that you're considering that you're going to do it as benefits rather than pay. And secondly, because the after-tax money that they're actually getting is only going to be about, like, what is it, Karen, 20 to 30 bucks a week for $1,000 after tax. So it's not meaningful there at the pay level. But when you then say to them, and this is where it gets to the employer brand component, if you then say to them, there's that $1,000 there that you need to distribute to them, you're like, well, we're going to give you $250 for your health and well-being because we really care about your health and well-being. We're going to give you another $250 to contribute to your public transport costs to get from home to work every day because we really care about you coming to the office, and we also care about being a sustainable business. We're going to give you $250 to spend on recreational purposes with your family. Take them to the movies. We don't care because we care about family time. We're going to give you another $250 just for yourself to go and do something that you really enjoy on your extra day of leave or your birthday leave or whatever, on some other form of distribution and delivery because we care about you as an individual. That employee in that moment, their employer brand experience is, my employee cares about me, the environment, my family, and they want me to do something special on my birthday. And they've also given me a pay rise. And every single time they go and use those 4 other things you've given them, there's an extra moment of gratification that's connecting them back to you. That's the way that we need to think about this from like a packaging REM perspective, going back to the undertones of human psychology and experience, and then also using those distribution mechanisms into different spaces to then build this perception of our employee, of what they think of us as an employer that's distributing that capital in those ways.
Yeah, Stephen, it's interesting on the comments. There's a couple of comments obviously coming in as well for a bit, but it's like, I think from one of the attendees just talking about that high trust organization where you feel valued. And, again, it's back to that whole cycle, isn't it? You are then more productive, got more energy at work. You stay with the employer.
That's the reciprocity principle too, right? Like, how many of us go and have meetings with people and buy them a coffee? The functional reason why you're doing that, you may not know this, but the functional reason you're doing that is because innately you know that you buy someone a coffee, you've spent money on them, they're probably going to like throw it back to you in some way or another. Maybe it's an introduction, maybe it's another meeting down the line, whatever it is. Humans have a reciprocity principle. And so if you're packaging these benefits up to show them that you care in different ways, they're going to try. In most instances, forgetting the 5% that always don't do what we want them to do, in most instances, they're going to be more engaged, participate more effectively, and deliver better organizational outcomes.
Yeah. No, thanks, Steve. So KP, it'd be good to get your feedback. We've got about probably 5 more minutes on some of these questions. There's a few questions come in from the attendees as well. We have got 15 minutes for Q&A with the attendees, so don't panic. We've still got plenty of time. But yeah, just be good to get your view on that, because I think the only question I'd like to finish up with this group before we get into the Q&A from the audience is also around that. How do you customize packages for a diverse workforce? So I'll leave Karen and Steve thinking about that one, KP, when you finish off on the previous question.
I really agree with everything Stephen just said. And I think most people would have gathered, but if you're not familiar with HealthNow's product, it does provide a solution to this. Stephen and I don't work together, but Humankind is a client of.
Okay.
We use a HealthNow card, and we have, for years and years provided our team with an allowance exactly for those things. And so even just the shift of having the allowance and having to do the expenses to having the card, which feels like more of a koha, a gift, even more flexibility around how they do it. It is a phenomenal way. Like you said, there's 200 things across ASB that employees care about. It's a phenomenal way to really meet those diverse needs and give people agency around what really matters to them in a way that's simple for employees. And it's all the 4 to 5 things that Stephen touched on. Those do hit, what the workforce is increasingly caring about at the moment, right? Employers' values around sustainability, flexibility, my health and well-being, being cared about as a person and whatnot. So just like I said, we use it at Humankind. A number of our clients use the product. It is a phenomenal turnkey solution that also helps with an FBT challenge. Just can't underscore that enough. But I think the key thing around your question on employer brand is you can't do it all, but having a really clear employee value proposition is that clear articulation of both experiences and benefits, and being clear about what you do. It is very difficult to do it all right now. And sometimes it feels like there is that pressure because we all have access to reading about all the articles and, and organizations around the world. It's impossible, right? Obviously, a small organization, small startup is going to have different kind of benefits, employee experience, et cetera, than a large organization. And so being really clear about what that is and then delivering on that promise.
Yeah, thanks, KP. Karen, anything to throw in there just before we maybe talk about the customization type of area?
No, I think just something we in the business and Smartly try to think about is, when we're looking at benefits, not just remuneration, is the appeal over all life cycles, all stages in the business? Because something that might be really great for some actually is just no interest at all for others. So as KP was saying, we can't do all of the things.
What's an example, Karen, of what's an example in your opinion of a benefit that doesn't, because I love this line, right? Like the person that works at reception that's just out of school has a very different experience of the world, different wants, needs and views as the person that's at the back end of their career. They're an empty nester planning for retirement. What's some examples that you think aren't hitting the needs of all of those individuals within organizations?
That aren't, did you say?
Yeah, that are not.
Okay.
Yeah, I think are not meeting the needs. Yeah.
Sometimes there's things like gym memberships. There's a part of the business that is just amazing. I'm so excited the business is going to pay for a gym membership. And there's other people that just go, I've got no interest in that. I don't see that as a benefit. It's not really important to me. It's not necessarily where you are in your life. It just could be, something that it's great, but it's not for everybody. Whereas it could be something like, once a month, we're going to do, lunches for everybody. We want you to come in. We want you to be connected. It's a small thing, but it's something that people, certainly in our organisation, love to do.
Yeah,
totally agree. And there's that other one, right, of we're hearing many times at the moment about people that the company does an insurance plan, an insurance rad, I'm not saying it's not, but my company has an insurance plan for all of our employees. Our young folk have no recognition and aren't seeing the value in it. Or I've got a group of people that have already got an insurance product because of their partner, and so they're not able to receive the benefit of that product. And so how do you, and the gym membership's another one, and there's lots of ones within health and wellbeing, which, when you create these direct vendor relationships, you're kind of missing the note because employees don't have autonomy, freedom and choice over their preferred provider or their preferred mechanism of receiving the thing that you're trying to deliver. And thus you end up spending all of this money, what we refer to as fixed cost for variable utilization. I think in America, they call them shelfware. not software, shelfware. All of the things that you spend money on as a business that aren't delivering any value or the value that you're wanting them to.
Just one of the questions is probably kind of closes the loop on what you've all just talked about. One of the questions which I think is good is like, how do you manage employee expectations if the feeling transition from gratitude to expectation of the benefits? I think that's quite a good question, isn't it? Because it is that whole thing of like, I suppose a lot of people, what do they expect nowadays? That, to being kind of like expecting things to having gratitude about things, or really seeing them as amazing benefits. I think that's quite a good question from one of the attendees.
I'm happy to open up with it. Yeah, I think first of all, it is very difficult, right? And the expectations are increasing, and so it's hard. I think a really good starting point is just being really tight and clear on comms. What are benefits linked to? Why are they in place? How are you making the decisions? And then also really, keeping your team up to date on what some of those decision factors are, including company's performance, right? And these are exactly some of the reasons why it can be difficult to do, but just really that transparency and keeping everyone up to date on what the factors are, how the organization is tracking towards those things, what level of control they have over them, and why you're making the decisions. I mean, sharing the why, going back to why, goes a long way. Go ahead, Stephen.
Go on, Steve.
I was going to say something similar, but just adding in that if there's like quarterly, 6 monthly, or annual recoms, like, oh, we're doing it again this year. Oh, we're going to add a little bit more for this. Oh, we're going to do this. That's how you bring that layer of variability where there's no ability. If it's not in their contract as part of their remuneration package, but rather it's a benefit which it's outside of their contract, they don't have a contractual expectation of receiving it. So psychologically, it's already shifted for them. And then secondly, with those variability moments of being able to do something slightly different, slightly more, slightly less, for whatever reason, like KP mentioned, that's how you can also do it. The last thing I would say is that there's another layer to this conversation of actually the moment of receiving the benefit. So, and we'll use the reimbursement process as an example to explain this, and then I'll overlay our experience as a counter. So when you say to someone, we'll use the analogy of winning a competition. I'm doing a competition. The competition is you like this post, whatever. If you win, you get $500. Then when you win, I'm like, congratulations. You go and buy $500 worth of whatever, send me the invoice, and I'll ship the money back to you in like 2 to 7 to 14 days. The person doesn't feel like they've won a competition. They feel like they've spent money and you owe them the money that they've just spent. Right? So that's not a moment of gratitude. Then now let's overlay our experience where our product, companies get a co-branded card with their company's branding on it. They get an app experience which tells them that the money that they've got and where that money can be spent and who's given it to them. Then they pull out this co-branded card with your company's branding on it and they tap it on the terminal and then it says accepted if it's within one of the accepted categories that you've chosen. In that moment, there's the perception to that individual that that transaction for them is free, that you've paid that money directly through to the organization, and that you can't miss the gratitude moment because they're pulling out your branding. You're the one doing it. It's not their money.
Yeah.
Or the perception is it's not their money. And so that's how we think about, you go down layers of the psychology of how people experience things, and then you continue to layer up. And then for us, right, we then send a text message to them being like, great work doing that transaction. You wouldn't have had that money if it wasn't for humankind.
Yeah, like that, Steve. Like that. Really like that. Karen, anything more to add? Sorry, KP.
Nope. Go ahead, Karen.
I was just going to say, it sounds really great. What you're talking about, Steve. We, I guess, as a business, tend to use sort of like your Prezi cards, sort of same sort of thing without the branding and.
Don't even get me started.
No,
actually, just because you work in payroll, I can't miss this thing. So, do you guys know how gift card companies make money?
On people bringing them?
Well, I guess they're charging fees on the
They
gift
keep
card.
all of the money that your people that you're giving the cards to don't spend.
Yeah.
That's how they make money. So when you give someone a gift voucher or a voucher and they don't utilize the voucher, what you've actually done is gone and give all of the benefit to the company that's not spent. And if you want to go and look at what the percentage rate of breakage is, which is the term that's used to explain what that money that's left on a gift card is, you'll see that it's a very large number that will make you quite uncomfortable quite quickly. Again, our platform, because it operates on debit payment rails, we've thought about what's the business's experience. We only charge the money that's actually spent.
Yeah, I think just like wrapping up
Wonderful.
the initial question also
Yeah.
is like, and what I loved what you both said, it's like the comms are really important. And I've really taken that away too, right? It's like, don't just it's easy to just inertia, just roll it out. Hey, this is happening again. We've made the decision to do this again. We've made the decision to increase this. We're doing this. Hey, how did you enjoy? Like, would love to hear how everyone's spending their extra day off. I would love to hear how everyone's spending their, HealthNow card, these benefits, et cetera. So it's the comms.
The comms sound great. Now, so we've only got about, we've got about 7 minutes or 8 minutes left. So a couple of questions come in from the audience. I think definitely all three of you on this one. So one of the questions is that what metrics or indicators do you recommend companies can use to evaluate the effectiveness of their remuneration and benefit strategies? Which is quite a good one, because that comes back to that, doesn't it? Like, how are you measuring? I mean, we've definitely touched on a bit of it, but I think they're looking for kind of what kind of tools and tactics and indicators they can use to measure. So Karen, are you comfortable to kick off with that one?
Yeah, I think, as we've already mentioned, retention and satisfaction surveys can give insights whether the conversation is, competitive and valued. We can look at metrics like turnover rates, job acceptance rates. It can sort of also signal if what we're doing is right and, on track. I guess we can look at right down to employee performance. Productivity also shows us, I guess, if our employees are motivated. There are a few other things that we could look at.
Brilliant. No, thanks, Karen. I think there's some really good practical tips as well. So yeah, appreciate that. KP, anything to add?
All those were great. But again, ask your people, throw that in as a question in your engagement survey, and then you can look at utilization of the benefits as well.
Steve, you're leaning forward, so I feel you've got some good ones to add in here now to that.
I'm just leaning forward because I'm lazy. No. My arms, get a little bit of comfort in there. I was just going to say that, like, and I don't know if I should say this in a public format, but you should definitely go back to every form of vendor that you have and ask for your utilization data. And I'm not just talking about utilization data on month 1. I'm talking about utilization data on month 5, 6, 7, 8, 12 months, because that's going to tell you what your people actually value and what's being utilized. And again, like, I had a business. We had a lot of people. We spent a lot of money. I was about to say something I shouldn't have said. We spent a lot of money on things that people weren't utilizing. And man, it pissed me off so much, right? And there are lots of things currently that are happening where companies are spending bucket loads of money on things that people aren't perceiving as a benefit, aren't utilizing as a benefit, aren't getting value from. And that is why we've got this problem within the benefit space or auxiliary benefit space with CFOs, because they're like, we've done things, it doesn't work, we spend all this money. It's like, go and find things that people are actually going to utilize, or that don't charge you unless they're actually utilized. And that's where you're going to be able to deliver value that the CFO every year will be like, that makes sense, that's fine.
Exactly.
Brilliant. No, thanks, guys. I think some really, really good, I think there's been some great kind of insights around strategies there, but also those tactics. And I think probably the last two questions to kind of wrap up, and they come through from some of the audience, but really I think people are asking, like, what are those kind of common mistakes, potentially common pitfalls that you think that you've seen, to just give people a heads up when they're developing and designing their remuneration strategies, and how can they be avoided? You might feel like we've covered a lot of it. I mean, because again, we talked about ask the employee, we talked about communication. I think, Steve, you've talked about that whole, there's a way of adding all those benefits in a way that's also, financially good for both employer and employee. But is there anything to add on top of that, that if the audience could take away into the office tomorrow when they're designing their remuneration strategy, like what would be those common mistakes maybe to avoid? So KP's nodding, so I'm going to kick up with you. Nod there.
Yeah, I'd love to. There can be so many, because this stuff can be really hard. I think there's 3 that jump to mind that we haven't touched on. One is not aligning your compensation strategy or your people strategy in general with your overarching business strategy. The second is not being clear or transparent around how your compensation decisions are made. And the third can be conflating fairness with sameness. And so particularly that first one, right? This can be such a powerful mechanism. So an example could be if you are a manufacturing organization and you manufacture parts for a medical device that is essential in critical surgery. The number one thing that your customer cares about is 100% precision, right? So what you incentivize shouldn't only be speed. It might be, hey, you have to, manufacture, you have to make X number of widgets per hour, but then you can incentivize 100% accuracy. So every quarter that you get 100% accuracy, you get X bonus, you get a HealthNow card, you get something. So incentivizing that then drives your overall customer proposition and what your brand is to your customers in the market. So that alignment is absolutely essential.
Brilliant. Steve, Kate, Karen, anything to add?
My big one was just going to be if everyone walks away from this chat today and just has a moment of realization that first, one size fits one. No one knows your people better than they do. Like, those are the lines that I kind of throw around, right? They actually land in an executive room. And then the second one is probably, please don't waste money on things that people don't actually perceive as a benefit, because it's not good for anyone in the value chain. And then thirdly, like, obviously consider our product because we're amazing and in all seriousness though, what I really was trying to get to there is that there are products out there, and it's not just us, that spend a lot of time focusing on the human experience of the benefit. And those are the things that are actually going to get your people to talk about it. They're going to pull it out of the barbecue. They're going to do the things that you want them to do to bring employer brand to the surface, elevate those employee value proposition moments, and actually drive in business changes. Just be critical about what you're looking to deliver.
Brilliant. No, thanks. Steve, Karen, you about to pop in there?
I don't think there's anything above what these guys have just said, but a common mistake is, a one size fits all definitely is the biggest thing, is look at everybody's needs, because they'll be quite diverse. And I think another thing is to look at regularly updating potentially the benefits. Just because we introduce something doesn't mean that's it forever.
Yeah.
Does it, as I said, once you understand the utilization of it, is it fitting the needs? Is it still important to people? All of those things. So I think that's something too. So you can set it up, but don't set and forget.
Yeah, brilliant. Guys, well, you did really well, because that's 1 minute to go and we covered a lot of ground there. You were brilliant. You were absolutely brilliant. And I'm sure, there's going to be a lot of questions. And if you're happy, I know a lot of the attendees have come in and said they'd love to follow up and maybe ask further questions. And I know you've all said that you're quite happy. If people do have some burning questions to reach out to you, through LinkedIn and ask questions. So appreciate that offer to everybody. But I think, as you said, in terms of recapping, I think, from our perspective, the best places to work and all the panel, it'd be great for everybody just to reflect on those strategies and think about how maybe you can apply them into your organizations. And if you need support and help, there's obviously a great panel here that you can talk to, and ourselves. But also, what I want to say before we close, we will share a recording of the webinar. So if anybody did miss this today, you can forward it on to anybody else as well. Plus, also, if you did want to go back to pick up any information, you'll have that and the asset. Also, we will send along additional resources with the comms that come out after the webinar. So we've got some really good guides from Humankind around guides to pay in a tough market, and also guides around tailoring your kind of packages for a diverse workplace. And plus, also, I think, KP, your point about the the employee value proposition, I think that's what this is all about, isn't it? I think that's the first thing everyone should look at when they're designing their packages. And so you very kindly have offered that your EVP model, which I think is really good, which we'll add into the link afterwards. And Steve, thanks very much for the ROI of employee wellbeing report. I've been through that report, and it's absolutely brilliant. I know in our last webinar, and there's just some great parts in there about the amount of money you put in and the money that comes out, and that return on investment is so valuable. So thanks very much for the panel for offering those reports. That and I know we'll send them out afterwards. Yeah, so thanks very much for everybody attending today. We hope you found the discussion really useful. Really want to thank the panelists. Karen, thank you very much. KP, thank you very much. Steve, brilliant as per. Brilliant panel, great insights. And I hope everyone enjoyed it and they have a great day. We'll all speak soon.
So fun. Bye.
See you later. Bye.